Men in Black are ultra-secret agents that have been aligned with the FBI, CIA or some other federal department that attempt to deter or even threaten individuals that came too close to the truth behind UFOs. Some UFO followers believe that the Men in Black are possibly aliens themselves. One man who researched UFOs was Albert K. Bender, who was born in Duryea, Pennsylvania on June 16, 1921. Bender served in the US forces during World War II from 1942 to 1943 as a dental technician. After he was discharged from the military, he moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut with his mother Ellen and stepfather Michael Ardolino. Albert Bender then worked as a chief timekeeper at Acme Shear Company, who manufactured scissors. Bender was an eccentric person who had a collection of strange objects such as faux skulls, shrunken heads and his own unusual artwork, and called his collection that he kept in the attic his Chamber of Horrors. Bender also had an interest in the paranormal, which had possibly coincided with the public's recent interest in flying saucer sightings during the late 1940s. This was no doubt due to Kenneth Arnold, who is generally considered the first widely reported modern unidentified flying object, and his sighting that occurred on June 24, 1947, along with the Roswell crash in 1947. This prompted Bender to form one of America's first UFO organizations. In 1952, he organized the International Flying Saucer Bureau, or IFSB, where World War I pilot and CEO of Eastern Airlines, Eddie Rickenbacker, became an honorary member. The Flying Saucer Bureau grew to a worldwide membership of 600, where Albert Bender was president. The Bureau was located in Bender's Bridgeport home, and its main task was to study mysterious crafts. One of the group's members was Max Kringle, who worked with Bender at Acme Shear Company and lived nearby in Stratford. Kringle served as vice president and assistant director at the Bureau. The Bureau released a quarterly journal called Space Review, which was distributed worldwide to its members. The newsletter shared stories of UFO sightings and offered theories about the origins of the flying objects. Strangely though, a short time after Bender had started the IFSB, strange events started to happen where he began to receive strange phone calls along with telepathic messages. He also started to get health problems such as headaches. These strange events would often coincide with any outbreaks of UFO sightings over southern Connecticut, and on many occasions Bender had an instinctive feeling that he was being watched. Things came to a head in November 1952 when he was at a local movie theatre and observed a strange man with glowing eyes staring at him. While he was walking home along Main Street, he came to the realisation that he was being shadowed. On another occasion late one night on Broad Street, he reported a bizarre incident where he felt he was being telepathically hypnotised before being levitated. But his worst experience was a sickening smell of burning sulphur that had suddenly permeated throughout his attic at home. After this series of unusual events, Albert Bender came up with an idea in an attempt to communicate via mental telepathy with the aliens. He asked his readers of his magazine Space Review to memorise and silently recite on a particular day and time a letter he had written. Bender wanted to connect with the aliens using simultaneous thought projections of hundreds of its members around the world. He called it World Contact Day, or C-Day, commencing at 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern Standard Time on March 15, 1953. People around the world would no doubt have chosen a time that would have coincided with the time and date in Connecticut. The telepathic message began with the words, calling occupants of interplanetary craft that have been observing our planet Earth. We of IFSB wish to make contact with you. We are your friends. Unfortunately, his message did not go over well, and his attic again filled with a yellow sulphuric mist that began to permeate throughout the room. He also claimed that he was telepathically ordered to cease delving into matters that were not his concern. Not to be deterred, Bender announced that the July issue of Space Review would hold a startling revelation, but for some reason it never appeared in print. Was something or someone now trying to censor him? Matters then came to a head in July 1953 when Albert Bender was visited at his home by three men, What stood out most for Bender was that the three men were all dressed in black clothes that were not unlike clergymen, and wore hats similar to the Homburg style. The mysterious and threatening men in black, who for some strange reason always appeared in threes, in no uncertain terms made it clear to Bender that he was to immediately cease all work on UFOs. However, this was not a physically verbal threat, but was communicated telepathically, demanding him to stop publishing, and before they departed, they confiscated copies of Space Review. As they were leaving, the attic was again filled with a yellow fog that appeared to materialise in the upstairs rooms of the house, and the sickening odour of sulphur spread throughout the attic. This horrific experience, along with their otherworldly presence, totally unnerved Bender to the point that he now feared for his safety, and could not eat for days. There appears no doubt that the aliens used sulphur in an attempt to deter Bender in his efforts to expose them, as the effects of sulphur on the human body irritates the respiratory tract and increases the risk of tract infections. It causes coughing, mucus secretion, and aggravates conditions such as asthma and chronic bronchitis. This, along with the negative telepathic messages, put the aliens in a totally negative light and would do anything to prevent exposing them and their work on Earth. This asks the question, were the aliens prepared to murder Bender? This would not be the last visitation, now, but Bender would later get regular visits from the threatening men in black. The telepathic messages, headaches, being stalked, and the constant warnings by the authoritative men in black suits forced Bender to shut down the International Flying Saucer Bureau. 1.5 years after starting the IFSB, the final issue of Space Review came out in October 1953, and it included a message and a warning stating the mystery of the flying saucers is no longer a mystery. The source is already known, but any information about this is being withheld by orders from a higher source. We would like to print the full story in Space Review, but because of the nature of the information, we've been advised in the negative. We advise those engaged in saucer work to be very cautious. In 1956, another Bureau member, Gray Barker, wrote a book titled They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. In his book, he wrote about Albert Bender's experiences, and it was in his book that the world would be introduced to the threatening title Men in Black. After abandoning his research into UFOs, Albert Bender left Connecticut and moved to California. In 1962, he decided to give an account of his own story. 10 years after his contact with aliens, in 1962, Bender wrote a personal account in a bizarre article titled Flying Saucers and the Three Men, and he impressed upon the reader how the sinister visitors were trying to silence anybody who attempted to expose them by manipulating their minds. In the book, Bender recounts that the men in black were from another planet. Albert Bender passed away on March the 29th, 2016, at the age of 94. So, what really transpired at 784 Broad Street in Bridgeford, Connecticut? Could everything that happened to Albert Bender be attributed to his mental state, and did he hallucinate everything that happened to him? Did publishing a Flying Saucer magazine create a sense of paranoia, causing him to have a mental breakdown? Or was he genuinely threatened by aliens dressed as strange businessmen in dark suits because he was getting too close to the truth? Nobel Prize-winning Danish physicist Niels Bohr said that anyone who is not shocked by what happened in Bridgeport has not understood what happened in Bridgeport. Who or what visited Albert Bender in Bridgeport, Connecticut? This proves without doubt that aliens are not our friends, and what is their ulterior motive for being here?